Now, I mean, academics are a prime example of this. They spend so much of their time flying around the world to another conference to hear the same people that they heard a few weeks ago in another part of the world give the same talk. There's very little real actual learning from that. I often argue, staying at home and talking with your PhDs and your other colleagues locally, you would learn much more from that. I also think that virtually there are lots of ways of engaging now. We do not have to necessarily travel everywhere to have those levels of engagement. And when we do travel, I would argue by travelling slowly means that probably you rearrange your schedule, so you're probably going to go somewhere for longer. So in fact, the whole experience becomes much richer, both in terms of the travel, but also when you're there, rather than you flying there, spending 2 days and coming back, if you're taking you 4 days to get there, you're likely to try to arrange it to spend 3 weeks there, which does require us to reschedule how we run our lives.
The other thing you can do if you travel slowly is that you have to stay overnight perhaps somewhere along the way, and you meet up with some other colleagues in towns along the way. You spend 4 weeks on a round trip, arranging different things, and being organised in it.
And that we can do that, but the problem is at the moment the way our structure is set up as academics. But it's still difficult for us to do that, but we can manage it. But I think for a lot of people, a lot of jobs, they're just not set up for that.
What do you do with families and things?
Well, people have managed with families for years. Darwin went off and did some quite good field work for a few years. He didn't fly back every weekend. So history is, and I just saying that because I have lots of my colleagues who work in academia. So I work in Mozambique. I've got to fly backwards and forwards to Mozambique. Well, firstly, do we really have to have that colonial view of the world? Does another rich white person need to go to a poor country to tell them about climate change or whatever the issue they're trying to address? Secondly, can we not help people in those countries be trained to be able to do those things that we can get information from them about what the work that they're doing? And thirdly, perhaps we should be going for longer then. Perhaps if that's the case, we should arrange to go, if that's the sort of work you want to do, you have to accept the fact that maybe 6 months of the year you'll go there and spend your time working there for that longer period. But we've normalised the idea everything can be done really quickly, everything can be bought really quickly. So there's a whole sort of framing of our society that wraps into also our self-importance. That we think we must be special people if someone else is paying us to fly to wherever it is to do some work.
One of my colleagues is saying that I can't do such and such next week. I'm going off to New York to give a talk, and I said,
pathetic.
Did you go to New York just 2 weeks ago? He said, I'm always going to New York.
But no doubt think they're worth it. That what they're saying is really interesting. It's the same banal talk they no doubt give every couple of weeks a different part of the world. We're so wrapped in ourselves and our own prestige here, and this is a particular cohort of people here. This is this high-emitting group, and you see it right from what I refer to as the climate glitterati, from the Al Gores and the Christiana Figueres. We see these people with massively high emissions, and it's only ever going to be solved to them through technology that allows them to carry on living their incredibly profligate lives. And that percolates down to the next set, us, people like us, who provide them with information, the academics, the senior academics who provide that, and that influences how the funding is pursued with research councils in the UK. That influences our postdocs and our PhDs. So the whole system is set up to reinforce that particular view of the world. And I think that probably happens in pharmacy, in the top end of engineering, and in almost all the top end of most big organisations. We're wrapped up with our own worth.
Is it possible to expect this top 10% to make changes to their lifestyles voluntarily?
No, there's not a hope. No, I don't think. I mean, there might be a few exceptions to that, but
what has to happen?
Well, I think we require, and it will vary from country to country, but there need to be some sort of regulatory framework, some sort of framework that requires those people to significantly change what they do, how they live their lives, at least while we make the shift to a very low carbon energy system.
Is this some kind of rationing?
Well, it is rationing ultimately.
If we said that the sort of 8 tonnes of CO2 per year, kind of the European average, whatever figure it might be, if we said that above 8 tonnes you've exceeded your ration, and what kind of penalties can you? How can you enforce this kind of ration?
Well, you could actually have it as a ration, so that you could actually have a certain carbon allowance every 3 months that's topped up, and it could be on your credit card, and when you buy some fuel for your car or some electricity for your house, you have it scanned off. You could be doing that. You could have a frequent flyer levy, so every time you fly, if you fly 2 flights, the second flight you pay twice the price of the flight, and third flight you might pay 4 times the price of the flight. You can have progressive energy bills in your houses, so if you use more and more energy, you pay more per unit of energy. There are lots of ways you can use prices or regulations to make sure that the wealthy can't carry on just emitting very high levels. Now, it's going to be unpopular, but climate change is innately a rationing issue. We have a small carbon budget left because we've chosen to fail for the last 2 to 3 decades. very little carbon budget left, and if we want to actually live within that, we have to ration it out because we can't get by without some energy. So the poor will require some of that energy, which means if we've only got a certain ration, we're going to have to cut back on that.